Good evening and welcome to the Grace Talk. I am Gloria Godson. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me. Bless his holy name. Thank you so much for joining us today. Yes. This is Thanksgiving week in the United States. For those who are watching us outside of the US, it's a day and a time when we gather with our friends and family to celebrate the goodness of God and to give thanks for the many blessings of Almighty God. But this year, Thanksgiving is like no other year.
Hello.
There's so much uncertainty out there, so much fear. And this week, we had new restrictions placed by several states on people, on how families can even celebrate Thanksgiving. This is a first ever that in my lifetime. And so this is an uncertain time for so many of us. Well, my guests today are, very well equipped and ready to dive in and talk about this. My guests are Steve Washington, who ran for State Senate District 1, and Donyale Hall, who ran for Lieutenant Governor of the state of Delaware. Steve and Donyale, welcome to the Grace Talk.
Thank you for having us.
So we are going to start. Happy Thanksgiving to you in advance and happy Thanksgiving to our audience. We are thankful to be here at this point in 2020. What a roller coaster ride we've had this year. So quickly, what are your reactions, to be where we are right now? This is Thanksgiving week on Thursday. What are your thoughts about where we are?
Ladies first.
Sure. So all roads typically lead to my house for the holidays. So with me having 6 adult children, I always look forward to them coming home for the holidays. I was looking forward to spending some time with my new grandson. He's 8 months now, and I've only seen him for 1 hour since he was born. So I was hoping that he would come, but they live in Charlotte, and my daughter is a germaphobe on a regular day, much less COVID. So they're erring on the side of caution and staying in North Carolina for the holiday. So I'll be sad that she won't be home, especially since she helps me prepare the meal every year. So I'll be in there slaving all by myself. I'll get the little ones in there, but they're more taste testers than anything. I like somebody who can chop and dice and slice. I have the younger of my 2 boys that's in the Air Force. He'll be coming from Georgia because he's going to be deploying to Jordan next month. So I won't get a chance to see him during Christmas. So we're going to make this holiday count, and we're going to be happy and full. And, I don't know what to tell Governor Carney because I have 10 in my house all by myself. So, if a few extra, kids or grandbabies or what have you are there, then it's more than 10. But last time I checked, he didn't pay my mortgage. So, I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, do you know that I thought about you when I saw the restriction?
I know.
10 people, to have for Thanksgiving. I'm like, she has 10 kids.
Yes.
Just by just you and your kids, you have 11.
Exactly. So, it doesn't take much for me to be over the 10, rule and so forth. But, we're going to be celebrating, and family's always a joyous occasion. So, even in the midst of the madness, I thank God that, I have my loved ones and my health, and, there's bigger and better next year coming in 2021. So.
Absolutely, bigger and better. What about you, Steve? What are your plans for Thanksgiving?
Well, I'm first and foremost thankful for God because here's the deal. God doesn't change in spite of. So because he doesn't change, the God that's in us doesn't change either. So Thanksgiving hasn't, the COVID hasn't stopped me from being thankful. Actually, it increases my thankfulness for being allowed to actually live through such a terrible pandemic. And I praise God for that. And God's still going to be God, and he's still going to be thankful. And what happens is that we're still going to eat turkey. We're still going to eat, may not have the numbers, and that's okay too. But God, it's designed, if you think about it, about the immediate family, and that's one of the things that we don't do. We sometimes sit in the house so much and don't even sit down at the same table and eat due to technology these days. But a lot of times, if God is doing, He's doing something for us to wake up and understand, and thank God for allowing us. Sure, something comes every century, every decade, but God is still there, prior to and thereafter. So we got to make sure that we praise God in spite of what it looks like, because that's what increases our faith. Our faith, we look at what it looks like, and then we don't want to make sure that we're faithful. But faith is something of things that what not seen. So we have to make sure that we're faithful and praising God in spite of this pandemic. It doesn't affect anything that I do. So,
thank you, Steve. That's a
yes.
good reminder to be thankful that the fact that we made it to the end of this year,
Oh,
we made it to
glory,
Thanksgiving.
glory.
So many people did not make it. There are so many empty seats and chairs around the table this year. But we
Sure.
are there with our families. We have so much to be thankful for. So, Donyale and Steve, welcome to our Candidates Corner. So we're going to start by asking you this question. Obviously, you ran on a very, very good platform. We supported you, but the outcomes were not what we had wanted to be. You did not win in your districts. And I want to talk to you about that. How do you feel about the outcomes? And what would you do with your platform? Because you had, and you still do have, an excellent platform that we think would be really beneficial for the citizens of Delaware. How do you want to go from here? Donyale, I'll ask you to start.
Okay, I'll start first. Well, the things that I campaigned on are things that have been a mainstay in my life for many years. And so I was an advocate for that as a private citizen long before I threw my hat in the ring politically. And I will continue to forge a pathway that continues to push the envelope on those things that, we talked about. Education as a parent, we can still be loudly heard inside of, a parent-teacher meeting and talk about the things that we feel are necessary for our children. And so I will continue to be a strong community advocate in the areas of small business, education, all those great things that, I brought to the forefront that were things that were underlying socioeconomic issues. I feel that, we add the charge and the challenge continuously to our legislators. And so, being able to hold our elected officials accountable is something that all people should do all of the time. And so, from this side of it, we can bombard, our people who are elected in office and say, this needs to be done in my humble opinion. This is how I would go about implementing. Here's a package strategy. Please, do something to address these things that people here in the state of Delaware are suffering through. I was very encouraged by my results. I received the largest amount of votes for any Republican statewide candidate in the history of Delaware. So that just means that we had a lot of people who were excited about the things that I brought forward with my platform. And I was not a one and done candidate. I ran for state senate 2 years ago. I ran for lieutenant governor this election cycle, and I will continue to push forward. Third time is probably going to be the charm. So, we've brought up some very good points, and I don't plan on relenting from that at all. So, greater for later.
I like
Greater
it.
for later. Go ahead, Steve, chime in there.
And first and foremost, forgive me for those who have lost someone during COVID-19. I was just speaking about the God I serve, but what I do pray, and I pray that people will not die, because I don't know who's on the other end listening. They say, well, what about me? I lost family member. I pray for you, and I pray for our country and our communities in regards to staying safe throughout this pandemic. However, as far as my platform, it's what I operate in. I operate in those spaces of education, public housing, affordable housing. I operate in spaces of the prison system, and because of the outcome, there's still issues that plague these areas of concern, and those issues right now. Who the person that beat me, they're going to have to do something to make it different as far as these issues that are plaguing our community. So God gave that platform to me and actually put me in those areas or those spaces where I can actually talk about them, expound on them, and allow people to see that the unreported data as opposed to seeing the data that's already reported. I do know that education, our curriculum hasn't changed. Our curriculum probably will not change now that I haven't won. But we're going to see what happens. But what I'm concerned about is this children that still have to go to school now. Although the curriculum hasn't changed, you have to be mindful that the content is what we struggle with in education under Common Core. It's the content which goes into the curriculum. So understand that although we may be failing at the content, people get stronger in the other area. Just like if you're blind, your other senses are stronger. So because they're not being successful with the content, they are able to navigate the technology that's out there. So it's still a win-win situation. I am concerned about what goes on in the prisons because COVID has hit the insides of the prisons. And no, sometimes they can't be 6 feet apart because sometimes especially if they have lockdown and they eat in the same mess hall, those rules don't change. So we're definitely concerned about what are we going to do in those areas. But as far as running again, oh, I'm definitely in there because here's the deal. This is why I praise God, because this year, COVID gets here, but by the time COVID will be gone in 2 years, perhaps we'll be running again because this position is a 2-year office for this time because of the redistricting and the things that they're doing in Dover. It's 4-4-2. And then, so I have an opportunity in 4 years to do what this person has to try to do in 2 years. So I'm praising God for that. When I think in terms of 2 years, because of COVID, by time we're able to get back to any normalcy, because it's already normal to me, but we get back to normalcy, it's going to be a point where it's time to campaign again. Well, during that time, I'm steady out there. I'm still in the forefront. I'm still canvassing. I'm going to, I never stop, to be quite frank with you. I'm hitting the ground. I'm going to, here's the deal. God gave me an opportunity to go to more civic association meetings and speak truth to power in what's going on in our communities, in our schools, in our prison, in our public housing. So I'm still doing the work. And yes, 2 years I'm running. By the way, Donyale and I, we do have something in common. I had the most ever votes for any district-wide Republican in the state of Delaware. So it's interesting how we Black Americans can increase the numbers. Now, all we have to do now is increase the mindset. Instead of people having a fixed mindset, we want them to begin to have a growth mindset. Instead of being reactive, we want them to be proactive. Instead of them operating under the good old boy network, we want people to be transparent. So I think all these things are coming together. So you got to know that there's a blessing in the disguise, and we're not losers. We win because nobody loses if you understand the 7 habits of highly effective people, a book written by Stephen Covey. Think win-win, begin with the end in mind, be proactive, synergize, all these different things. You got to make sure that we act in those spaces. So I may have said a lot, but that's where I am. I get passionate about it.
I am super excited. Again, we supported
Yes.
you guys, and I'm glad to hear that you are not throwing in the towel. You're not walking away, washing your hands, because both of you are right. You got the most votes in your, areas. Steve got the most votes in the area that he ran, and you got the most, Republican votes as well in your area. So there's a lot of work to be done. And by the way, this is not your first rodeo, either one of you.
Right.
So there is an opportunity there. You're learning from the experience, you're growing, and we are, and like Steve mentioned, there's the work is ongoing. The work never stops. The work never stops. Let's touch base with our audience, and I'll come back with another question for you. Daryl says, hi, Daryl. Daryl says, good evening. And he says, proud of your efforts, candidates. Absolutely. Our audience, we're very proud of you. Mike says, stay true to your values, Donyale. Absolutely. And Cynthia, hi, Cynthia. She says, good evening. People are checking in and letting you know, yes, congratulations. You did not win, but we congratulate you because you ran an effective campaign. You held your head up and you held your ground. We know that this has been a blue state for a long time, but the momentum is growing, and the results that both of you saw is demonstration that the momentum is building. We just need to keep the pressure on and continue to look forward to not voting on a particular party platform, but voting our values. That's what counts. Yeah. If everybody voted their values and voted for the candidate, not the party, so that's a problem. Don't vote, along party lines. Just vote the candidate that exhibits, incorporates the values that you have. If we did that, I truly believe that you guys would win. But it's not over yet. It's not over yet. And so now I have a question. Let's shift gears a little bit here. I have a quick comment. Cheryl, hi, Cheryl. She says, I appreciate values over party. I would love to see your values continue to be pushed to the front over your party. Absolutely. Our audience, you're getting a very clear message. They continue to support you. They're saying, keep going. We keep our eyes on you. And if there's anything out there consistent with your platform that you need to get out there, please reach out to us on the Gray Star. We'll be happy to connect you with our audience so that people can mobilize to support the platforms that you have going forward. So now let's shift gears a little bit. This week has been a little, since Tuesday of last week with the new COVID restrictions. We talked a little bit about that with the family, Thanksgiving celebration. But both of you have a direct impact. And again, we'll start with you, Donyale. You're a small business owner. How does this impact you as a small business owner?
Well, I was listening to someone that was making a suggestion. Perhaps if Governor Carney flipped the script and made it so that all of the small businesses were the ones who got patronized as opposed to the big box stores, then they could be okay this go around with the scale back in, being able to service your customers. I know that within the next week or so, you're going to see it's the holiday season, Christmas shopping, Black Friday. There was a merchant call here locally with Governor Carney, and people are concerned about what that's going to do to their small businesses here in the state of Delaware. And 2020, we saw 37% of our small businesses close permanently. That means they're never going to reopen their doors. And so, while we're looking at being phased back to phase one in some regards, we're going to be seeing another resurgence of economic hardship that's going to transpire within our small businesses again. Fortunately for me, I have a contracting company. I was essential before, I will remain essential, but you have a ripple effect when people cannot afford your services. Even your business suffers, even if you are considered essential. So, my concern remains the same. How do we move forward economically? I mean, in another few weeks, I think the day after Christmas, people are going to lose their unemployment. You're going to see people who still haven't been able to return to the workforce. What are they going to do? It's just mass mayhem that I constantly think about in regards to people who are going to feel the pinch as small business owners throughout, the continued restrictions. So I think that we've had enough time to be able to get a good understanding of how we can keep our businesses open and still be able to manage the spread of the virus. I was encouraged. I saw that they have fast-tracked the immunization that's coming out, the vaccine and all of that. I don't think I would be the guinea pig. I don't think I would say I want to try it out. But I mean, there's some hope that on that side of it, that at least there's some progress that's being made, and hopefully we'll be able to see by springtime this thing turn the corner and be able to get our economy started again.
Thank you, Donyale. It's definitely a challenge, and I'll come back there. I do have some follow-up questions. Go ahead, Steve. You are an educator, and this hits schools. I know that so many schools, a couple of schools now have, gone back to remote learning exclusively. So what are your perspectives on how these new restrictions impacts education?
I think that as an educator, remote learning is hard. It's difficult. It's overwhelming. Um, rather be in the classroom with the kids. I definitely would, but I would rather always also want to be safe. And there are mandates that are in place, and unfortunately, we have to follow the mandates. If that is the data is showing that more people are passing on and the numbers are rising, we want to make sure that we are mindful of the numbers. We haven't gone back yet. In fact, as far as doing remote learning, I've been doing it. We're supposed to go back in our district on December 2nd, and then the students come back on December 14th. My wife, she's teaches in another district. She's back. And what happens with her is that she's in a classroom and she has like maybe 3 students in a classroom, but then the rest of them are doing remote from home. So they kind of, different districts are doing it differently. Another district that I know of has already closed down to do remote learning, and that perhaps that's going to happen. It's hard on everyone, but again, when we think about learning, which is a biological change in our behavior, we want to make sure that we are somewhere we're growing in spite of what's happening. I feel that this is probably, this is an idea that we who are actually working and not losing our pay, somewhere for the small businesses, a percentage should come out of our pay to support the small businesses during this pandemic, because guess what? We're all in it together, and it affects everyone. So I believe some way that those who are still getting a full pay, a percentage could come out and support small businesses, to keep them afloat and to keep them open. And because America really is built from the small businesses on the backs of slaves, who that is us. So we want to make sure that we can all have and we can all still survive, because and when we talk about the United States, it's one united. So we all are in it together. So I believe that we have to be mindful of small businesses. I did have a small business. It was called Stone Oven Pizzeria and Soul Food. My wife and I were quiet owners, but the fact is that we closed because we were paying more for the Stone Oven pizza and the electric and the rent more than the customers that were coming in. So I know that the small businesses are struggling, and somehow we have to have the mindset where we're resilient people, bottom line, and we're creative. So we have to have the mindset that when we go through these type of situations, and there's going to be more, we just bless God that we haven't had a war in the United States, or at least during my life. And I've been around a pretty long time, so we want to make sure that the living, we want to make sure that we're able to actually go with whatever's happening and still try to survive. We gotta be able to change with our thinking and our reality of what's happening. We got to make sure that we are able to, maneuver. And that's what I'm saying. We're creative. It's hard, but it's going to be hard for the students as well. It's going to be hard for teachers. So this is just a time we got to pray and stay.
Absolutely. There's a lot of relearning that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
We're really having to unlearn and relearn and be flexible. There's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of adjusting that has taken place. There were things people have given up on, things that they thought were absolutely non-negotiable just a couple months ago. Now we're
Yes.
learning to do without them. So there's a whole new learning and a whole new approach. And Americans, as always, are very resilient. And all around the world, I mean, we really don't have a choice. And people have risen up to the occasion, but there are long-term consequences. And I want to come back and talk about that for a minute. But let's check in again with our audience. Cynthia says our votes do count. And absolutely, Cynthia, you're right. Everyone listening to us, make no mistake. Even though these candidates did not win this time, we know clearly the evidence is there that our votes counted. Our votes were very visible in the number of votes that they got, which was record setting for the state. Let's continue to push and let's continue to stay on mission. Do not rest and walk away. We need to stay focused and push forward. Darrow says we cannot speak of representative government without more persons of color holding office.
Exactly.
We would continue at breaking ceilings. Daryl, absolutely. Daryl brings that point forward that a real diversity in our government is so much needed, that we need people of all colors we need our government to look like the population, to look like the citizens of Delaware. And you guys are working hard to make that happen, and we continue to support that. One of the things that you had said, Donyale, that was really interesting to me, and I have seen a lot of this kind of memes, and commentary, that many times as we've seen the behavior of the politicians who impose these rules and break them themselves willy-nilly. We've seen what happened with California, with Nancy Pelosi, even with our own governor. Photos of them, breaking their own COVID-19 rules. And I saw some of this commentary where people were saying the thing is that these people really do not know how the impact of this. If they had family members who had small businesses that have shuttered, then it would be much more closer to home. It's so much easier to impose these restrictions when you don't have anybody that is directly impacted. Again, we've seen this behavior, the governor of Pennsylvania, who imposed restrictions on his state and then crossed the border to have dinner in another state with no masks. I mean, we've seen this behavior, they come under fire, but it's a natural human behavior that people are more draconian, in putting all these rules together when they don't have a direct impact. They don't feel the pinch of it. So what are your commentary on that? Again, you talked to, a little bit about that, Donyale. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think that before it leaves my mind, Daryl had made that comment, and I just wanted to circle back to that before it left my thought process. But one of the things that I have found in my own experience is that no party, Democrat, Republican, any party, has really thought much of the African American vote until now. They wrote us off. They said that we didn't participate and that our vote was negligible in the numbers. And I'm so excited that, this year we turned that corner. So absolutely, the momentum will build from here. I will not let it fall to the wayside. We're going to take that momentum and we're going to push it forward in the coming years, even before the next election cycle. I know Steve had said that, his seat will be up again in 2 years. You don't let the momentum die out now and wait a year and then try and start back up. What we do is we have conversations now that get a strategy moving now so that when we arrive at 2022, people don't feel hustled for their votes. I have always felt resentful that I never saw anybody who was running for office or heard from them until about 6 months before an election cycle. So, I plan on being diligent. I know Steve and I have talked about this, and I have made people understand that the reason why we were successful is because neither of us have ever been afraid to roll up our sleeves and work side by side the communities that we hope to serve. So in order to make sure that people see the value of us being in office, we have to continue those efforts. And now is a great opportunity because there's so many impacted communities by whatever's going on with COVID, that we can get out and roll up our sleeves. If it's at, a food bank, passing out food, if it's at a local church, helping, our faith leaders disseminate whatever, clothing. It's getting cold, the homeless issue is prevalent. The people who really truly care about the state of Delaware, you will see them visible all of the time, not just 6 months before an election. So I just wanted to revisit that moment to Daryl to let him know that I see you on the feed here. Don't be surprised if you get a message from me that says, "Good brother, I would love to know where you are so we could come and put together some things, within your community to get some things that you see that need to be done." That's how we, mobilize together. We have to all carry this burden together in order for us to emerge from it successfully. So you made mention about the elected officials. I find it very insulting that how dare you sit and collect your steady paycheck while those of us are trying to figure out how we make it every month, and then not abide by the rules that you set forth. That is, something that is insulting to the people of the state of Delaware. And it's very telling because, again, when you go to cast your vote the next go around, these are the things that you need to remember, are the people who that were there, that were willing to suffer through these hard times together with you and forego some comfort. I mean, maybe some of these elected officials that don't need that paycheck could donate some of it, to the people who don't have. We're rapidly closing to the end of the year. The CARES Act, all that money that the state of Delaware does not use by the 31st of December goes back to the government.
Yes, it does.
And we have not used it. And it's because we don't have people in office that have a good business acumen to be able to get the resources in the hands of the people that need them. We don't have a mechanism in place that really effectively handles that. So again, get on the phone, call your elected officials and say, time is quickly coming to a close for the CARES Act funding. We know this program needs to be funded, that program needs to be funded, and we need to have a streamlined process to be able to get the funds to the people, or perhaps even find a strategy that retains some of that money. I was having a conversation with a good friend of mine that had let me know that there were startup programs that were being put into place to be able to contend with all of the fallout from COVID-19. So if I'm just getting my infant organization up and running, how can you expect me to use the funds by December 31st? So, it's just little things like that I would charge and challenge the elected officials that I know to find some kind of meaningful way to find a shelter for some of this funding so that people can still be able to get these services up and running that are going to be a benefit to the community. So, everybody needs to do their part. If you know an organization that could use some funding, have them get on the phone with their elected officials and find out how they can take advantage of this money before it is reabsorbed, because inevitably what's going to happen is that's going to go back into the federal government, and then they'll plug whatever hole they feel needs to be plugged, and Delaware is still going to be left without yet again. So, those are some of the things that I would like to see happen here within the next 5 weeks before the end of the year.
Thank you, Steve. I don't know if you have any comments there.
I just think that when we think in terms of the vote, and I'm talking to Black people right now. I want us to understand that we cannot afford to take our vote and use it for someone else's growth. Your vote has to be for your growth. So if you know that you're a straight ticket voter and you don't know anything about the person that you're voting for, that's not really a good move to make. What I'm saying is that you have to really know that your vote is important. And I'm talking about, if you think in terms of a straight ticket, it's not going to really benefit you. I lost my race, and the person that beat me, they do not represent me or my lifestyle or 80% of the community. So we have to make sure, and people don't know that, they just went right in and voted. And we have to make sure that we have to vote, because anything that comes out of the government affects Black and brown people, affects poverty. And because we will not stand strong as a community in spite of, we're going to keep on falling whenever something hits us. When it hits us individually, and it knocks our whole community out. But if we stand strong, we will do much better, and we'll be able to stand up. So somewhere along the line, we got to get Black people to really understand that we have to support each other, not because of money, because what happens is money is the root to all evil. But what happens with the money, they have purchased you, and that's a form of slavery. We are so stuck in that mindset of the slavery mindset. And I'm speaking for a lot of people that vote straight tickets. They pay you to vote for them. And then again, like you said, Diane, you won't see them. And you know what? The money that's coming out, you're not going to be a part of that. We have not even, first of all, been included in the decision-making processes that affect our life or lives prior to the decisions being made. We are already included. We're included after their decisions being made. So we're not going to be able to grow. And that's what's happening. So we got to make sure, we have got to really understand that, to see out of your lens, you see some things out of my lens. There are some people's lens, I have no idea what they look, how they grew up. But a lot of people that look Black, we have kind of experienced some of the same things, especially when you're driving down that street and getting stopped by a cop. So we got to be mindful that we have to stand up. Can you imagine a Black party? I'm not talking about Republican, Democrat. I'm talking about a Black party. Just let that, just think about that for 1 minute. Since we swing the pendulum, or since we are that part that makes it go right or left, can you think about a Black party? And I'm not taking anything from Republican or Democrat. I'm just saying.
Well, that's a thought. But again, just a reminder, many of our audience, we have audience, our audience members are, Black, white, Republican,
Sure.
Democrat. But that's a point to really, I think the main point that you're making is in our vote counts. And I do
Exactly
understand the comment that you're making in the district where you ran. The person who won does not represent the values of most of our audience. I know that for sure. So it's not a question necessarily, of race, but it's a question of values. And the person who ran in that district, who won this year, does not represent the values of most of our audience. And that's a challenge, that's a problem. And to your point, many people did not even know that. They just voted down party lines. They did not even research to say, does this person agree with my values? Who are they? They just voted along party lines. Okay, it's hard to believe, but our time is winding up here and we need to be ending the show shortly. Daryl says, those who win, do not make the best leaders for masses of people, but those who know setbacks and adversity. Out of this, compassion and character is born, and leaders are made superior. Absolutely. Again, challenges teach us lessons, and when we fail, is actually a lesson in disguise. Mike Ancona says the government counts on people having short memories. Absolutely. They come back on 6 months and there you go again. Absolutely. Show up in 6 months and I ask you, where were you all this while when we needed real people to fight for us? Daryl again says, yes, Donyale and Steve, we must join forces and seek strategies for meaningful and lasting changes. Absolutely. Cheryl says, that's good information. Thank you, Donyale. And she says, that's what I was saying. We have to know your values. A lot of times we don't know unless we do the research. We have to change the language, not talk about party all the time, talk about the values. Oh, we have had a fantastic conversation and the comments keep coming. Great conversation today. One last thought that I wanted to inject here before we completely end. And unfortunately, we would not have a lot of time to delve into it because we're completely out of time. It's around the future for Delaware. One of the concerns that I have is right now, Danielle, you've already mentioned so many businesses have shuttered. And with these additional restrictions now, and if they miss out on the holiday season, many of them, that's when they make most of their money for the year. If they are not able to make any money, they are now handicapped permanently. And so many of them may shut down. Individuals are getting money from the government, which is running out. The concern I have is that going into the future, you may have a situation where now, because people are dependent on the government, and all of a sudden, government is suddenly taking the place of God, of provider, of Uncle Sam in the lives of people. Now, government can impose things. Government can tell you, if you don't do this, we take away your money. And at that time, you have no place else to go because your business is gone. You have no job. Suddenly, government can intrude and take all of your freedoms because now you have no recourse. The government says, if you don't do this, I'm going to take away your money. And of course, you know that what government give it, government take it away. So I don't know if you have 1 minute to comment on that. That if you can't do it in 1 minute, I can't. Then we have to. But these are some of the concerns I have because there are long-term implications to this. When people become dependent on government over the long term, they're emasculated. They are rendered powerless, and the government can take from them just by the threat of removing their sustenance. Now all of a sudden, people trade their freedoms and their rights just to be able to eat. Unfortunately, we are staring that future in the face if this continues. Any last comments, any of your last messages to our audience before we end today? I will start again with you ladies first, Danielle. Quickly, 1 minute.
Well, just to hit your point there, one of the things that people are enamored with oftentimes are free things. Free things are not free. Everything comes at a cost. And so you have to recognize that there are trappings in what the government gives, because just like you said, the government gives and the government takes away. So if you're willing to sacrifice your freedoms, your liberties, and your rights, then you are in line to be able to take advantage of those freebies. And you have to be very wary. Gloria, I have always enjoyed my moments with you. So please, I would love to keep in contact with you over the next several weeks as we traverse our way into 2021. So thank you for having me as a guest. I'm thankful for your friendship. I'm thankful that God has put us on each other's path. And I pray for you as you pray for me going into the new year. I wish you happiness and health and strength in the coming year. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Danielle. Steve.
To make it quick and easy, um, don't just eat fish. Learn how to fish, and then you can be self-sufficient. God bless you. God keep you. I really appreciate you too. I appreciate both of you. Thank you, Gloria. Thank you, Danielle. And let's just keep it going. Let's stay in contact. Let's communicate. There's always something new. We have to keep up. I will definitely keep you up or keep you abreast as what's going on in the prison. I will let you know what's going on in public housing. I'm definitely going to let you know what's going on in those classrooms because I operate in those spaces. So you all are jewels. So we got to make sure that we make this happen and put it into the atmosphere. Appreciate you. God bless you.
Absolutely. Again, like Danielle, both of you have said, if anything is going out there that we need to bring to our audience, let's keep it before them. Let's get them involved. Let's get them to call their legislators and ask for, I request them to take action that will benefit the citizens of Delaware. So we are definitely supportive of working with you guys to develop strategies that benefit us as Delawareans. Last check-in with our audience, Mike says, they being the government, they want us dependent on government in order to exercise complete control. Oh my goodness, God forbid that day will come when we lose all our freedoms just to get a bowl of beans. Somebody traded that in the Bible, right? His name was Esau. He traded his birthright for a bowl of beans, and it was not a good trade. God will help us not to make that trade. Cheryl says, thank you both so much. Thank you, Gloria. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Donyale and Steve. What a fabulous conversation we've had today. Have a blessed Thanksgiving with your families, and I look forward to continued collaboration. And you, our audience, thank you for a very active, engaged audience today. Happy Thanksgiving. May the Lord bless you and keep you. Bye-bye.